Can anyone beat the Chiefs? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch here with your NFL Week 7 reaction, review, and recap. Recapping all the action from Sunday before Sunday Night Football. We're going to talk about each game, my thoughts on each game, and what I saw this Sunday. We're going to begin with the Chiefs and the Niners, and the headline from my live chat. I was live during the 49ers and the Chiefs, and the headline in my chat was continuously, nobody is going to beat the Chiefs. Nobody's going to do it. They're going to three-peat. So what do I think about that? We're going to break down the Chiefs right now. Who stands a chance against the Chiefs? Who matches up best? And we're going to break down the 49ers and the Chiefs as a game, because it was an interesting game for sure. I don't think the score is truly indicative of what took place. It was a very competitive game from start to basically finish. We're going to talk about that. We also had the crazy London Patriots game. Of course, I was live bright and early for that one. And we had a lot of big time games across the NFL that I described as a fight card. Teams that are marqueed, teams that are viewed in similar light. The Chiefs and the Niners, right? Super Bowl teams from last year. The Packers and the Texans, dark horse teams from last year that are contenders this year. The Lions and the Vikings for NFC North crown privilege, right? We see two teams like the Seahawks and the Falcons. Big bout for an NFC playoff position. So there were many of these type of games across the board. Even a game like the Raiders and the Rams that was kind of like which team can keep their season alive and not spiral out of control. That was also another one of those. So let's talk about it, man. Let's begin with the Chiefs and the Niners, which finished up at 28-18 for Kansas City. The Chiefs advanced to 6-0. The Niners are 3-4 on the season. They've got the Cowboys on deck. So Chiefs had their bye. Niners have yet to have their bye week yet. This game was very defensive, especially early in the game, and there were a lot of turnovers in this game and a couple crucial ones. And honestly, the way I would describe this game is there were a couple differences. I thought that the Chiefs were able to run the ball a little bit better early and late in the game. During the middle section of the game, they actually really couldn't run the ball at all, and it was mostly due to volume and attempts why they had the amount of yards that they had, 184. I mean, if you look at Kareem Hunt, he had 3.5 yards per carry. So it wasn't like they were really running the ball at will. It was more so just a volume thing. The Chiefs really did struggle to run and to move the ball, to throw the ball, especially in this game. And Mahomes, from a statistical perspective, had another very poor game, 16 for 27, 154 yards, 2 interceptions, 0 passing touchdowns. He did have 1 rushing touchdown on 4th down and 1. And the way I would describe this game is the turnovers that the Niners had were backbreaking. The turnovers that the Chiefs had, the defense for the Chiefs was able to step up and make plays after that, which allowed them to not be backbreaking. So there were turnovers and big plays and emotional moments that could have went either way. And the ones that did for the Niners, right? The Niners got those plays, interceptions, a punt on 4th and 1, a punt fake that they actually stop on 4th and 1, and then they throw an interception right after that. And I felt like the difference was, honestly, as poorly as Mahomes was statistically, he was the better game manager in this game versus Brock Purdy. And honestly, I thought both play callers, Kyle and Reed, and both coaches, I thought did a manageable job with what they were given. And I think a big thing that threw the Niners off was obviously losing all of their receivers in this game. Deebo Samuel basically was out from the very start. He was sick and was not able to play in this game basically the entire time. I think he played 1 snap. Brandon Ayuk got injured during the second quarter, I think. So that obviously threw a wrench into things. And the Niners were having to count on players that they really shouldn't be counting on. Now, some of those players did step up, and actually the Niners were moving the ball in the second half very, very well. And they were the far better team in the third quarter, in my opinion. But because of the backbreaking plays that the Niners had, they were just not able to overcome it. And a lot of this falls on Brock Purdy. I think there's been many losses over the last 2 years that the Niners have had that I think ultimately fall on Brock Purdy's decision-making and game management. He's a very young quarterback, And at times, he just simply does not make the right decisions. He forces the football. And in games that are tighter, in games that are defensive, he doesn't know how to win these games yet. And that is clear and evident. And Mahomes is basically used to this. For like 2 years, they have been unable to move the ball. They're the kings at moving the ball at 3 and 4 yards at a time. And that's exactly how they played this pretty much from the start, right? So the Chiefs had 3 more first downs. They were far better on third down because of how they set themselves up on first and second. The Niners are known as a shot team. The Niners are a big explosive team, and that's basically how their offense is ran. And usually it's very, very well ran, and it's arguably the best in football when they have all their pieces. When they don't have their pieces and when the run game is haltered and faltered at the helm here for San Francisco, it really impacts them because their early down success is not as good, and their third down success, despite good pass protection for a majority of this game, Brock Purdy could not get separation from his receivers, and he did not have good receivers to throw to, which was a huge concern. So you look at this game, and 8 for 14 on third down, I think was a huge edge for the Chiefs because they were able to get in these third down and threes. They had a couple where it was like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 later in the game where they were able to make it convert. There was a couple, throws by Mahomes or scrambles by Mahomes or individual efforts. I think Mahomes had about 3 or 4 fantastic plays in this game. There was a scramble down the left sideline. There was a throw to Noah Gray to close the game out. There was honestly not many downfield throws. There was maybe none. There was a couple runs. There was a couple shovel passes, things like that, like a little magic, little vision type plays. But honestly, like when Mahomes plays like this, you should come out on top. You should win. And I honestly cannot say that the Niners defense played anything but well in this game, honestly. I mean, when you hold Patrick Mahomes to a 44 passer rating and you hold Kareem Hunt to 3.5 yards per carry, you expect to win the game. And yet you lose by 10. And that's because of turnovers. That's because of Brock Purdy's decision-making in this game, right? So 3 interceptions thrown by Brock Purdy, 1 on, I think, his very first attempt of the game, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Maybe it was the second series. It was the second series. So the Niners had a series. They went 3 and out. They punted. Chiefs got the ball. It was 4th and 1. They got stopped on a fake punt, and they got the ball in Kansas City territory to start the game. Purdy throws an interception. He forces the ball. That right there could have been points. You're at the 40-yard line of the Chiefs. It's first down. Throw the ball at the dirt, right? Take a sack. It's first down. Play action boot. Okay, it's not open. Throw the ball right at the ground. That's all you do, right, Brock? Throw it away. Instead, he throws an interception. He forces it. Justin Reed picks it off. Nice interception, but still. Second interception, I believe, was at the goal line. And third interception was also at the goal line. There was 2 interceptions in the end zone by the Chiefs, which totally altered the perception of this game. This game was very close, and the Niners definitely could have won. And that's kind of my takeaway. But at the same time, the Chiefs won because I thought Mahomes' interceptions, he threw one in their own end to Lenore, and he threw another that was batted in the air in San Francisco's territory, and I don't think anything resulted of that play. But Purdy had 3, and of course, there was a turnover on the 4th down, but it was what resulted of those turnovers, right? And the Chiefs also had much more possession. They had 35 minutes of possession, a lot of that coming late in the game compared to 24. And when the Niners defense needed to get a stop at the end to give their team a chance, they weren't able to. Mahomes was able to make enough happen. Their run game, Gray was running hard, Kareem was running hard, and able to get those yards. I thought, okay, so in terms of standout performances, I thought the Chiefs secondary played exceptionally well. They did get called for a couple holding calls, but that's as expected. They played a ton of man coverage. And especially when Ayuk went out and Debo was not active, they smothered the Niner receivers. And it was very hard to get yards out there. I think the only guy that was consistently making plays was George Kittle, who did have 6 catches in the game. But, I mean, other than that, there was really not a Niners receiver that showed up. I think Cowing actually looked pretty flashy in his small role in this game, so Niners fans can look forward to that. He's a rookie. Pearsall is his first ever NFL game. Expected to be a little rough. I think he had a couple catches, but none were too significant. And the Niners struggled to run the ball early. They did get some ground game going in the third quarter, but it felt like they were running the ball, and then they would make a mistake. Or they would move the ball, make a mistake. And this is a lot like the Vikings game to me for the 49ers. I do think they deserve to lose, but at the same time, I also feel like they could have won. Very much like the Vikings game. So this wasn't like a game where they got hammered, and I don't think the Chiefs hammered the Niners, and especially considering the injuries for the Niners, I don't think this is necessarily a game where I'm drastically overreacting to San Francisco. I think everything, like I've said all year for San Francisco, depends on health. If they're healthy, they're an NFC contender. If they're not healthy, they're going to be out in the first round. They'll probably win their division. They'll be out in the first round. It depends on health for the 49ers. And it depends on these games and these high leverage moments with Brock Purdy. At times, he's been very good. At other times, he's been very bad, right? And you just can't turn the ball over. Even before the last drive, right, that the Chiefs scored, they drive down the field, and I think they're trailing by like 8, maybe. So the score was 21-12. So it's a 9-point game. And there was still plenty of time left, right? It was like the beginning of the fourth quarter. And Purdy forces it into double coverage at the goal line. Instead of like, okay, yeah, it's 3rd and goal. I understand you want to make a play here. Let's just like take the sack or like throw it incomplete and get a field goal. And now it's a 1-score game. The Chiefs haven't really ran the ball. They haven't really moved the ball. Make them like earn it. Don't throw a pick. Make it a 1-score game and make anything happen at the end. Instead, Purdy with these critical mistakes. I actually thought that Kyle, when he lost his players, I think this was actually one of his better games in terms of adjusting against an elite defense. Like the Chiefs have like a top 3 defense in the league pretty easily, right? And I actually thought Kyle called plays better when their players were out, if that makes sense. Usually he struggles because he struggles to adapt to the players being out, and obviously because they're very good. But like Debo was out early, Ayuk was out later, and he still was calling good plays, and the scripting was good, and then Purdy would like throw up on himself. So he did have 2 rushing touchdowns, and he did make some nice throws. I thought he made a couple of nice throws down the field, Kittle, Cowing. I thought there was some good schemed up plays. But overall, like Brock was not good in this game, and he was the reason the Niners lost, in my opinion, because the defense played outstanding. The O-line played really well. Sure, they gave up a couple blitzes. You're going to give up a couple to Spags. He's the best there is, right? There's no Belichick in the NFL anymore. Spags is the best there is on defense. So you're going to give up a couple, right? But overall, I mean, I thought the O-line was way better than the Super Bowl, and Purdy still shit on himself, right? And then the run game, obviously no McCaffrey, so you're not going to get the same exceptional ground game, but it's been good all year. I thought it was good in moments. It struggled early, which definitely got them behind the 8 ball. But overall, when people ask you, can the Chiefs be beaten? Can the Chiefs? I'm still not super impressed with the Chiefs. Again, like people are going to try to change my mind. That's okay. People are going to overreact. That's okay. They're 6-0. That's great. And I think what I figured out with the Chiefs is these last 2 years, man, it's not that they're not good. And I think saying they're a bad good team or they're a bad team with a good record or they're fluky, that's not correct. I think what's correct is they are an ugly football team that wins games. They are an ugly football team. They are like an '08 Steelers. We're always expecting to watch the 2018 Chiefs. We're expecting to watch the 2016 Patriots or something. This team is like the '08 Steelers. They're going to win every game like this. They run the ball a ton. Mahomes makes a ton of bad plays, but he also makes an incredible amount of clutch plays. And their defense is outstanding. And they're very well coached. And they're good on special teams. And Butker never misses a kick. Meanwhile, Niners miss a extra point because they're on their 3rd string kicker. So there's 2 things here. Chiefs are not unbeatable, although they have a style that's very difficult to beat. And you have to be prepared to play in an ugly game. And the Niners are not good in that type of game right now. Purdy specifically is not good in that type of game. Maybe it would be easier with McCaffrey because obviously you could get those tough yards where you need it. But Purdy is not ready because he makes critical mistakes in critical moments. Secondly, I would not overreact to the Niners. Unless all of a sudden they say that Debo's out for the year, McCaffrey's out for the year, Ayuk's out for the year, Hufanga's out for the year. all these guys are out for the year, then fair enough. Their kickers, their third string kicker, bunch of receivers out. Okay, so I wouldn't be too concerned about the Niners. This isn't the worst loss they've ever had to the Chiefs. I actually am very encouraged by the Niners defense overall. I would also say for the Chiefs, they were able to, I guess, withstand losing Juju in the game, although I don't think Juju is very important, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe he is. I will give a shout out to Mecole Hardman, who made a couple nice plays. I thought they used his speed well. I still think they're struggling to utilize Worthy. I thought Nick Bosa played really well early in the game. I thought Lenore played exceptional in this game. Charvarius Ward played exceptional. You got to give shout outs to the guys that played well on the Niners. Leonard Floyd had a good game. The Chiefs, I thought Trent McDuffie mostly played really well. Nick Bolton played really well. Chris Jones was kind of quiet. I will admit, kind of quiet. Karlaftis, I thought, was more impactful than Chris Jones. Kelsey was kind of quiet. I thought Noah Gray played really well. Kareem Hunt, although he only averaged 3.5 yards per carry, I thought he got the most out of what was there, which I think is a skill. And he's very good at that. And he fits this style of Chief offense. So yeah, that's kind of my take, man. I don't think the Chiefs they're far from unbeatable. I think when you look at them, I think the team that best matches up, there's a couple. I think the Texans match up well with them because of their edge rush and because of their offense and their skill positions and CJ. That will be a great matchup. I think, and D'Amico can kind of go toe-to-toe with Reed, I feel like, on that side of the ball. And we'll talk about the Texans against the Packers, which is a game that I expected them to lose, and they lost. The Bills, I think, match up very well with the Chiefs. I would expect the Chiefs to lose to the Bills in Buffalo in the regular season. I don't know about the playoffs, as we know. But the Bills, the only area I would say is the Bills need to get a little bit better against the run. But otherwise, pass game, I think they would dominate. And the pass defense, I'm saying. And pass offense and offense overall, I think the Bills would give the Chiefs a pretty tough time now with Amari Cooper. That game would be good. I still think the Bengals match up really well with the Chiefs, and the Bengals defense is playing better football now. So that game would still be interesting. That's just the AFC teams overall, right? Like the AFC West is a joke. The Broncos are playing well. The AFC South, right, is just the Texans, pretty much. The AFC East, I do think the Jets would give the Chiefs a game, but I don't think they would win. I think it comes down to the Bills and the Texans in the AFC. The Ravens, I think it would be a very good game, but I don't love that matchup for the Ravens on either side of the ball, really. So I think that's more of a matchup thing. I think the Bills and the Texans match up better with the Chiefs. NFC-wise, like a lot of people are like, oh, NFC's not that good. NFC has a bunch of good teams. The Niners are one of them. I still think. The Packers are another, which we're going to transfer to that game. We'll talk about the Patriots in a second. We'll wait on that one, bro. Packers and Texans, 24-22. Packers won. And this was, in my opinion, domination from the Packers for the most part. The fact that this game was this close is extremely impressive by the Texans. I don't know how this game was this close. Part of it was that Jordan Love made some bad mistakes, kind of like Brock Purdy, which I think kept the game close. He had 2 interceptions. But I did think Love overall played well. He went 24 for 33, 220, and a 95 passer rating. But the 2 interceptions were tough. The first one was early in the game, which resulted in the Texans gaining the lead. He was like trying to fit it into his receiver. It got jumped and picked off. His second one was just a very bad pass. It was just a miss. He threw it way over, I think, Christian Watson's head. Derek Stingley was on him. And if he would have thrown it like to the left a little bit more, I think Watson would have ran onto it for a catch, but it flew over his head. And Watson had to jump, and it went right over to the safety. So that was a terrible pass. CJ Stroud had like his worst statistical game of the year. He had 86 yards, 10 completions. The Packer defense, the biggest story of this game, the Packer defense is legit. Packers defense is good. They played really well. Hafley was super impressive. The blitz packages they had was super impressive. The coverage down the field was sticky. They really didn't allow separation. I mean, the Packers look like a legit contender. And Jordan Love, I think, is going to dictate that a little bit because the Packers have proven they can run the ball. I thought they ran the ball better today in terms of efficiency than they ran the ball in past games. Maybe not as much like total yardage. They only had 82 yards, but they averaged 6.3 yards per carry from Josh Jacobs. I think Jacobs played pretty good in this game. I thought Dobbs played well. I thought Kraft made some nice catches. I think he scored a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. Wicks scored another touchdown. He was okay. He had a 30-yard touchdown. It was a deep one. It was nice. It was a nice touchdown, but I thought the main guys, Dobbs, Jacobs, Love made some nice downfield passes. Reed was kind of quiet for a normal Reed game. Defensively, I thought everybody played well. McKinney was coming in on blitzes. I thought Gary played really well. I just thought Halfley overall, like the defensive scheme, the way they were covering, the way they were blitzing, they were getting a guy free on Stroud continuously. And this is what I say about Stroud, man. He has to just overcome everything every game. And it looked like the Texans were going to win at the end. They got a field goal at the end to take the lead, and it just felt like they gave Jordan Reed and the Packers a little bit too much time. And that was kind of the story at the end. But Joe Mixon did kind of carry the Texans offense. He had 25 carries for 115 yards. A couple of them were super explosive, 4.6 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns. He was their entire offense. They went 4 for 13 on third down. To be fair, they had only 3 less first downs than the Packers. But the Packers offense, as we know, guys, is all about explosives. We've talked about that. Yeah, no interceptions from Stroud was also a reason they were in the game. I thought Stroud kind of played like Mahomes here. Like, he had nothing available to him, and he just kind of managed it, and they ran the ball, and they played decent defense, but it just wasn't good enough in the end, and the Packers were able to come through. Stroud was visually frustrated throughout the game with the blitzes that were coming through and the lack of answers from the receiving core. Diggs and Tank both struggled. I thought Alexander was exceptional in covering mostly Diggs in this game. 6 punts for the Texans, 5 punts for the Packers. The Packers had 3 turnovers, and they still managed to win, which I think spoke to their domination in terms of yardage. And it felt like the Packers were making more big plays. It felt like the Texans were going 3 and out more often. They couldn't get anything going on offense. Packers were like just all over them. And, yet the Texans were up at half, 19-14, right? The Texans were up with like a minute left, 22 to 21 with like a minute left. So the Texans had a chance to win because of the Packers' mistakes, but the Packers were able to overcome their mistakes, and they were able to come through. And I think that sometimes is a signal of a very good team. Sometimes you will make mistakes, but how do you overcome them? Especially against another good team. It's hard to beat good teams making mistakes in any sport. The Packers were able to, I know at home, I know the Texans very injured on defense. I know that they're very injured on offense, especially at receiver. Nico Collins is like their second best player, and their defense very injured. But the Packers were still able to make mistakes, overcome it, and win, which is very impressive. You got to give them credit for that. Now, can they always afford to do that? No. They're going to have to clean those things up, get better from there. But yeah, Love looked cleaner today, though. He only missed a couple passes, from my opinion. That usually I thought he was a little rougher in past weeks. Big win for the Packers. Big win. Kind of a statement. Both teams are 5-2. I thought the Texans, Neville Hewitt, who replaced their linebackers, I thought he actually played really well given his talent and skill set. I thought that Stingley played pretty well. I thought that the pass rush was a little bit more quiet than usual. The offense, I really didn't think anyone played well except for the run game. I thought the run game was very solid. Joe Mixon was very good. Dalton Schultz had a fine game, I guess. Stroud just struggled to find options, find things that were available. Like, it was just a very difficult game for the Texans. And that, again, I think falls on coaching. Like, At a certain point, you need to help your quarterback out. There was just not a lot to be had out there. Hafley totally dominated Slowick, in my opinion. So, yeah, Packers totally deserved to win. I thought this score was not indicative of the final. Packers should have won by more, in my opinion. They only made this close because of their turnovers. So, 24-22, despite them actually having to win in the last minute of the game. But that's, not here nor there. Now, let's talk about the Bengals and the Browns. Storyline of this game, Bengals win 21-14. They score 14 offensive points. Deshaun Watson tears his Achilles, which obviously sucks for Deshaun Watson. Does it suck for the Browns? Probably not. Does it suck for me or you? Probably not, right? Like, do we care about Deshaun Watson? Unfortunately, we don't, especially how he's playing football lately, but I mean, it couldn't have happened to a better person, so yeah. Not saying I ever like to see guys hurt, but guys that are paid cajillion amounts of dollars that don't really play well at their sport, that don't even really seem to care, that are also kind of douches. I don't really care if they get hurt, to be honest. It was the one time where I was like, oh, I don't really care. Quarterback got hurt. My boy Charlie Jones returned a kick right off the bat in this game, which ultimately provided the edge for the Bengals throughout the course of the game, and they could kind of like manage this game. And I will say, Mahomes is probably the best game manager in the league right now. Joe Burrow is second. Like, all year, Joe Burrow knows how to play in the game that he's given. They're 3-4 now. The Bengals are right back in this thing, and the Bengals are a threat in the AFC. I know people don't want to believe it. This is typically a matchup that they do not fare well in. They at least managed to win. They scored 14 points in the third quarter, which gave them the edge. Jamar Chase had a touchdown. T. Higgins had a touchdown. That's the way it should go. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, coming through with enough plays. But Burrow, 15 for 25, 181, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That's a good game for Joe Burrow against a stifling secondary that's held most passing games, if not all, that they've played in check this year. And, not getting much from the run game. Chase Brown had a rough game, 2.9 yards per carry. They really leaned on the run at the end, understanding that the Browns offense was inept. They had their second and third string quarterbacks in the game. They just ran the ball until the game was over, pretty much. T. Higgins had 4 catches for 82 yards and a touchdown. The Browns actually managed to have more third down conversions, 8 of 19, 2 for 13 for the Bengals, only 2 third down conversions, 18 first downs. They had 100 more yards, but they lost pretty decisively. I know they only lost by a touchdown on the scoreboard, but one of the touchdowns came at the very, very end. So it was 21-7 for most of the game. And I felt like I didn't watch a ton of this game, but from what I saw, the Bengals, their run defense is back, man. Their run defense, Nick Chubb, first game back, you would expect big things. 11 carries, 22 yards, 2 yards per carry. And that's the reason the Browns were in 19 third downs. They could not run the ball to save their lives. And then after that, for some reason, after Watson got hurt, who actually was playing really well, Watson was playing really well in terms of completions. Like, I think he was I don't have the stats in front of me, but I want to say he had 2 incompletion. He was probably 13 for 15. For Deshaun Watson, he was actually playing really well. Okay, so give him a little bit of credit. But after that, they put in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was awful. He threw 2 picks in the game. He was terrible. And then finally, they put their best quarterback in the game, Jameis Winston. He throws a touchdown at the end. They need to start Jameis Winston. If they're smart, they start Jameis Winston. The players like Jameis Winston. The Browns are 1-6. If they just want to get the best effort next week out of their team, they start Jameis Winston because players like Jameis Winston. They will play for Jameis Winston, and that's, in my opinion, a big deal when you're 1-6. David Njoku did have a strong game. He's a great fantasy option if you don't have a tight end right now. 10 receptions, 76 yards, and a touchdown. Exceptional. Okay, he's a great player. Cleveland also still dealing with penalties. 10 penalties for 80 yards. And Bengals struggled on offense a bit, but they managed the game. Burrow still managed 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. And their defense, I thought, played one of its best games of the season. And that's 2 weeks in a row where they've won 2 defensive, ugly football games, kind of like Chiefs style. So Bengals are 3-4. They play the Eagles in a huge game at home next week, I think. So that's going to be huge to get to 4-4, back in the race of the AFC North. And it's not going to be long after that. They take on the Ravens, which could ultimately be for fighting position in the division or an AFC potential wild card spot or something like that. So Bengals, big win, 21-14. It's unfortunate with Deshaun Watson. Hope to see Jameis Winston. Browns are done this year. They traded Amari Cooper. Speaking of Amari Cooper, 34-10, the Bills end up taking it over the Titans. The Bills were actually losing at halftime in this game. They're losing 10-7, but they won 34-10. So they went with, 34 unanswered points. I thought it might have been 24. It was 34 unanswered points. Josh Allen goes nuclear, 21 for 33, 323 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And I was getting from Durkant in the Discord, Josh Allen sucks. He's overrated. The Tennessee Titans entering this game were the best defense in football in yards per game. So we see Josh Allen throw for 323 yards, 2 touchdowns in the game. And Patrick Mahomes throws for 150 yards. I don't even know. Joe Burrow throws for 180. Josh Allen threw for 320, and he is overrated apparently. So both teams had the same amount of first downs. Both had 18. Titans actually were moving the ball decent during the beginning of the game. They had a good script. They ran the ball pretty well with Tony Pollard, who I think's like right now, I think Tony Pollard is like one of the most underrated running backs in the league. People kind of forgot about him because he went to Tennessee, but I think he's had an exceptional season. They were using a lot of play action, rollout type stuff with tight ends in the flats and short passes for Mason Rudolph, who was playing decent at the beginning of the game. But then, when Mason Rudolph attempts 40 passes, you're going to lose. Like 25 for 40, 215, a touchdown, interception. He was actually playing well at the start of the game. But the Bills, as McDermott typically does, he's been very good at adjusting to opponents this year after like the first quarter or second quarter. Like McDermott's done a very good job at that. I will give him credit for that. Through the air, right, the Bills were successful, but on the ground, they were not. 74 yards on the ground in this game. James Cook had a pretty quiet day despite scoring a touchdown. Ray Davis did have a more successful day. 5 carries for 41 yards, 8.2 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Amari Cooper, though, is kind of the guy I want to highlight. Had 4 catches on 5 targets, 66 yards, and a touchdown. That's 18.5 yards per catch. That's what you want to see from Amari Cooper. 4 catches, 5 catches, all deep down the field, and a touchdown. That's what you want to see from Amari Cooper. And he didn't play all the snaps, right? He only played in big moments. He scored, I think, the go-ahead touchdown in the game to make it 14-10. He did in the third quarter. It was like a slot post. He just beat his man. Allen put it on him. And you could just instantly see, like, he didn't really know what he's doing most of the time. But Allen is so good. Cooper is so good at football. They figured it out, and they connected for some big plays. Fades, back shoulders, some pretty cool stuff from Amari Cooper and Josh Allen. Overall, though, this is the type of result you would expect to see from a team as good as the Bills. The Bills are going to continue to move up my power rankings. 34-10 is definitive, right? Like, you compare this across the NFL, there are not many teams that, even against a team as bad as the Titans, have consistently been able to hammer opponents. So the Bills have hammered the Titans, hammered Jacksonville. So against teams they're supposed to hammer, they hammer them. That's good, right? 34-10. They were 9.5-point favorites. They covered and then some. So yeah, it was rough until halftime, but Allen picked it up. They figured it out on offense. They figured it out on defense. They said, okay, Josh Allen, go out there and win this game through the air. And they said on defense, we're gonna fix this. Our run defense is gonna be better. We're going to force Mason Rudolph to beat us. We're going to play everything short. They did that. They won this game. And Titans are just a disaster. Will Levis does not play. Just terrible team. I mean, they're a bottom 4 team in the NFL. And there are some very bad football teams in the NFL right now. Next up, let's talk about a game that broke my heart. The Colts beat the Dolphins 16-10. This was a best bet, which, by the way, man, so many bad breaks on best bets, man. I mean, like, bro, I think I went 9-3. I think I'm 9-3 right now in straight up picks, and I want to say my spread record is probably like 8-5. Something like that. No, 8-4. Something like that. 7-5 maybe. Something like that, okay? Best bet's 0-3, bro. Rams blow it at the end. covering the spread. Patriots up 10-0. We'll talk about that. They blow it. They had a chance to cover. Colts, this was the worst one. Dolphins had 3 points. The game ended 16-10. There was 26 points scored. I had 3 points in the game, 3.5 at some places, and they still couldn't cover. And basically the story of this game, I thought Miami was pretty much the better team for like 3 quarters. And then Snoop Huntley got hurt. The Dolphins boinked, I should say, not banked, but boinked a field goal that was pretty makeable from Sanders. They fumbled. Raheem Mostert fumbled, which resulted in a touchdown from the Colts. And that was basically the game. And that's why I lost the best bet. So if you were on the Dolphins, I apologize. Don't know what to say about this game. I mean, I didn't expect the quarterback to get hurt. Didn't expect the kicker to, boink it. And this game pretty much went the way I thought. I mean, Richardson was awful. 10 for 24, 129 yards. He fumbled. He didn't throw a pick, but he fumbled. He had a 59 passer rating. Huntley was actually not playing bad. 7 for 13, 87, and a touchdown. That was a 100 passer rating. And he found Jonnu Smith quite often in this game. 1 for a touchdown, 7 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Jonnu Smith was very good in this game. Tyreek and Waddle. I don't know what's going on with Mike McDaniel. Tyreek and Waddle were nowhere to be seen for like 99% of this game. It was awful. The Dolphins ran the ball pretty well. 188 yards. A-Shane had 77, 5.1 yards per carry. Wright contributed. Mostert contributed. I would say that Mostert was the worst. Wright was kind of mid. But A-Shane had a good game. I thought Tyler Goodson for the Colts, although not pretty, had a pretty good game. Scored a touchdown, 14 carries. Trey Sermon near the end of the game played well. Beginning, not so much. Michael Pittman did have 5 catches for 63 yards. Most of the yards, like half of Richardson's yards in the game. Gay hit 3 field goals, so congratulations to him. And the Colts win. It was 13-10. Dolphins had a chance. Boinked a field goal. 16-10 on the field goal. After that, Boyle kind of drives down the field. They run out of time. That's how the game went. Pretty boring, pretty dull, but Dolphins definitely should have. I mean, they had more first downs. They were better on third down. They had more rushing yards. They had more passing yards. They had more total yards. They punted less. They fumbled twice. I guess that's where they lost the game. So, yeah. Tough scene. All right. Let's move to one of the games of the week. Lions and the Vikings. 31-29. Lions take it over the Vikings, and it appeared that it was just going to be another one of those Vikings victories. They went up 7-0 after the Lions had a stupid fake punt early in the game. Dan Campbell, I swear, man, it's okay. You can punt the ball. Punts are okay, especially early in the game in a divisional matchup where your opponent is looking for any sort of momentum off of a bye week, a spark off of a bye week at home. Don't get the fans going. Instead, fake punt stuff. Vikings go up 10-0. 57-yard field goal from Richard and a 34-yard touchdown from Aaron Jones. I want to say, I have doubted Aaron Jones far too much throughout his career. Every year I feel like he's going to fall off. This guy is so elite. I mean, he's so good. 14 carries, 93 yards, 6.6 yards per carry, and a touchdown. And he caught some impressive balls in this game. There was one route, he was like the slot receiver. He ran like a 15-yard crosser, like Justin Jefferson, and caught it for a first down. And there was a hold. I mean, Aaron Jones is a stud. He's just another stud in an offense full of studs. I actually thought Sam Darnold played pretty well. He was 22 for 27, 259, a touchdown, interception. Jared Goff played mostly really well. He had a moment in the game where he kind of panicked. But other than that, I mean, his stats speak for itself. 22 for 25, 280, 2 touchdowns, 140 passer rating. The Lions are schemed up extremely well, man. And their run game, once again, I mean, the best that anyone has ran the ball on the Vikings. 15 carries, 116 yards, 7.7 yards per carry for Gibbs, 2 touchdowns, and an electric Barry Sanders-like run where he made a man jump out of his shoes and his jock at the same time. He scored an 8-yard touchdown, but earlier he scored a 45-yard house call, just electric. And the Lions win this game because they put up 21 points in the second quarter, and they led 21-10 at half. The Vikings actually outscored the Lions 19-10 in the second half, but it was not good enough, and they were chasing in the second half. I will say a little bit disappointing from the Vikings defense. Their run defense got ripped. The pass defense this was just a game where we've seen the Vikings give up yards on defense. They gave up yards to the Jets. They gave up yards to the Niners. But what was the difference? Turnovers. Turnovers by the Niners, rather in terms of Purdy giving it away, or fourth down stops. 2 on the goal line by the Niners, right? Vikings allow yards. They don't allow points, and they get negative plays. That's why their defense is so good. The Lions did not turn it over. Outside of David Montgomery, who I think fumbled once, if I'm not mistaken. They actually fumbled 3 times, according to the stat sheet, but they only lost 1, which I remember being David Montgomery, which was an incredible play by Metellus, if I'm not mistaken. He punched the ball out. Metellus punched it out, and Pace ran it back, and it was a touchdown. That's what I'm remembering. Jefferson was kind of like good early, but not great. He scored a touchdown, 25-yard touchdown. He wasn't as dominant as I thought he would be, and I have to give credit to Carlton Davis for that. I still see a lot of flaws in the Lions' defense. Their pass rush, not very good. Really did not get home at all. They were blitzing a lot, and they got beat down the field quite often. Their run defense was actually not very good. And their pass coverage, I thought, was maybe the strength of their defense in this game. The pass coverage, which is not something we'd usually say. Amon-Ra St. Brown actually caught an oddly deep ball for a touchdown, which is not very common. I believe he caught a 35-yarder. That is very uncommon. I think it was like a post down the right seam. It's a nice route. Made a great catch, but I was like, wow, St. Brown that far out? Wow. Raymond also, another little man with 21-yard touchdown. The Lions are really good. I think you could make a strong argument they're the best team in the NFC. I do think they're flawed. I do think Goff has his moments of like puking and kind of coughing things up, but you can't argue with the pure data. 22 for 25, 282 touchdowns. That's like 3 weeks in a row with 140 passer rating. That's exceptional offense. That's not just quarterback. When quarterbacks are putting up stats like that continuously week after week, not just in one game, that is scheme. That is offense. That is everybody as a cohesion, as a cohesive unit, especially against this type of defense that forces so many negative plays. That's extremely, extremely good. So many like drags underneath guys, open, play action boots, open. And then he was nails when he needed to be down the field, like I said, with St. Brown. Goff was really good. He was the better quarterback here. Their run game was slightly better. But you thought this was going to be another Vikings game where they got up and they ruined the game with their pass rush and their scheme and their blitzes. And I actually thought that the reason the Vikings match up so poorly with the Lions is the Lions' offensive line. They pick up every blitz. They pick up every stunt. There's no flaws. There's no deception they can't handle. And that's so much of what the Vikings have been successful with. I mean, and the Vikings are still so opportunistic on defense. I mean, they punch the ball out continuously. Even like the Lions are not a team that fumble a lot. The Lions are not a team that make a lot of mistakes. The Lions are not a team that make a lot of turnovers. This team is just always punching the ball out, always around the ball. They're always opportunistic, but the Lions are picking up blitzes, which allows more time for Goff. He was going through his reads. He was making his plays. And it just felt like Goff was always comfortable. He very rarely, except for maybe very early in this game, he was like, and they got the ground game going, which definitely helped to open up Goff down the field. But it really felt like the run game kind of, again, is the orchestrator. It's the conductor to this offense. But Goff is the guy that puts it over the top and Penalty yardage relatively the same, punts relatively the same, possession pretty much the same, yardage pretty much the same. It's just that the Lions got it a little bit earlier in the game. And there was a key interception. Brian Branch had an interception on Sam Darnold, which was a huge play in the game. Impressed by the Lions. Their offense comes through against arguably the best defense to this point, especially in terms of opportunistic nature, right? Lions, I think you have to say, is the best NFC team, although I'm still worried about the pass rush. I'm worried about the secondary. I'm worried about the defense in general. I don't think there's many problems with the offense. I think the only real thing you can say about the offense is that, if you can force Jared Goff to be under pressure, you have a chance. But not a lot of teams are able to do that, as we've seen by the Vikings. It's very hard to do because of how good this offensive line is. So give them credit. The Vikings hung in there. They fought. They just didn't play their best game, especially on defense, which they need to win these games because they're really not as good as their offensive skill positions are, as good as their O-line is. They dominated this game. They are not an offensive team. That's not their identity. Their defense is their identity. And without their defense coming through with turnovers and jumping on mistakes, they can be had. So still think the Vikings are a good team. Still think the Vikings are a playoff team, no doubt. But I think the Lions were just slightly better, slightly more dangerous on offense. And Goff was just slightly better than Darnold. So, yeah, they're just slightly better all the way around. Seattle and Atlanta. 34-14, Seattle wins. This was kind of interesting because to me, it wasn't the dominant score that I think it projects. It was another one of those this week. Atlanta had more first downs, and I don't think that's necessarily garbage time. I actually felt like Atlanta was moving the ball pretty frequently. They had 385 yards, which is actually more than Seattle. They ran the ball better than Seattle. They were better on third down. They were 2 for 2 on fourth down. They punted less, but they had 9 penalties. They lost a fumble, and they threw 2 picks. And honestly, I don't really think either pick was Cousins' fault. I'm trying to remember them. And guys, because I'm watching every game, it's hard for me to remember every play in detail. But I actually thought Cousins played pretty well. I know that's crazy to say, but I think that his flaws showed up. I thought his precision showed up. He was accurate. He was on time. He made a number of nice throws. He still, threw 24 completions, but they moved him a lot. Mike McDonald sent a lot of different stunts at him. I thought the Seahawks D-line played as good as they've played, especially in pass rush. They've played all year. I thought this was an exceptional game for them up front against a good Atlanta O-line. And I think they took a page from Pittsburgh's book. And this was a very Vikings-like performance by the Seahawks defense. They gave up yards, but they made a lot of negative plays. They forced turnovers, 2 picks, 1 forced fumble. They got Cousins on the move. They strip-sacked him there. And they took advantage. I mean, Devin Witherspoon had a phenomenal play in this game. Kenneth Walker had a beast game, which he's always capable of. He had 14 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. He also caught a touchdown, 17 yards. Geno played really, really well, I thought. He almost made no mistakes. 18 for 28, 207, 2 touchdowns. It wasn't his loudest game. He didn't have 300, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns or whatever, but he played really well. I thought he moved better than Cousins. I thought he escaped better than Cousins. I thought he made some downfield passes early in the game. A touchdown right before the half, which might have been the deciding factor in this game, to DK Metcalf down the middle of the field. And Metcalf left this game, 4 catches, 99 yards, and a touchdown. Hopefully he's okay. It looks serious. He got carted off. Hopefully he's all right. Same with Brandon Ayuk, by the way, which I just saw a report. It might be ACL, so I hope it's just not a major tear, but, hope for the best with those guys. I mean, very talented players, especially DK this year has been having a phenomenal year despite the recent struggles. London, 6 catches, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Still had a good game. Mooney was more quiet than usual, but I still noticed him a little bit. Kyle Pitts actually had a good game here. Bijan, 21 for 103. He also had a very good game. It just felt like the turnovers, backbreaking turnovers. They would move the ball. It would be a fumble 6 or a big interception Or, the Seahawks were just, I thought the Falcons, especially early, were not controlling the game. I thought Seattle was in control from the start, but I felt like Atlanta was always in it early. And then that touchdown to Metcalf happened, and the game kind of Atlanta just couldn't stay in it. It was one of those where the last few weeks, they maybe got behind, but they were able to always come back, surge back, not make the mistake, actually make the big play. Atlanta this time, they forced a mistake. Seattle forced a mistake, right? So Seattle, huge bounce back win. Freaking critical win. They're in first place in the NFC West now after the Niners lost. They're 4-3, even though they lost to the Niners, which for now is good. And Seattle is in position for a playoff spot. They actually have the same record as Atlanta, who's also 4-3. So if Seattle is able to, they win this game 34-14, that puts them in a driver's seat ahead of Atlanta. They do have a more difficult schedule than Atlanta, so Atlanta should be able to make up this ground. But this was a big loss also for Tampa. If Tampa can beat Baltimore, that's huge for them in the standings in the NFC South. But in my opinion, this came down to, I thought Geno played better than Cousins. I thought the Seahawks made less mistakes than Atlanta. Atlanta made more mistakes. I thought Seattle's defense, pass rush-wise, was very effective against Cousins. I thought the run defense for Seattle still showed a lot of cracks and a lot of flaws, and Atlanta ran the ball all over them. I thought the Seahawks run game was much better than usual. Kenneth Walker had a bigger game. DK got going. 2-minute drill. Tyler Lockett is one of the best receivers of all time, by the way. And big win for Seattle. Just taking advantage of mistakes from their opponent. The other games, 40-7 for the Commanders. I don't even know if I really need to talk about this game. And 28-3 for the Eagles over the Giants. So just for the Commanders, important thing to note, Marcus Mariota came in for Jaden Daniels, who got injured, and he was amazing statistically. 18 for 23, 205, and 2 touchdowns. And I think what I have to say about the Commanders, 26 first downs despite losing their phenomenal MVP candidate, 421 yards. What this says to me is that this Commander offense is a well-oiled machine, and Cliff Kingsbury might be offensive coach of the year. He might be assistant coach of the year. Cliff Kingsbury is on fire, guys. This guy is coaching his ass off. Who would have thought, man? Marcus Mariota, 18 for 23, 2 touchdowns. Brian Robinson, 12 carries, 71 yards, a touchdown in his return. Commanders absolutely fucking dominated. Excuse my French, but the Panthers are terrible. I just have to ask you guys a question. Are the Panthers the worst team of all time? If you combine last year and this year, are the Panthers the worst team you've ever seen? Because they're in the conversation. They are exceptionally bad at football. They can't stop a lick, pass, run. They make mistakes. They can't run. They can't do anything, bro. Their offense didn't show up in this game. Commanders' defense dominated them, and the Commanders' defense isn't even that good. Commanders' defense, I will say, has strung together a couple really impressive games. This game and the Cardinals game in particular. But man, Panthers are so bad. But the Commanders look like a lock for the playoffs right now. The way their offense looks, I mean, they put their backup in there and they put up 40. Come on, man. Jaden Daniels didn't even have to play. Come on, bro. And you look at just the way they're scheming this thing up. Mariota was actually throwing it down the field pretty well, and Daniels has been primarily an underneath guy. Commanders are good, and you got to give Cliff Kingsbury a ton of credit. I think he might deserve another head coaching job. If this continues throughout the entire year, shit, bring him to New England, man. He was drafted by the Patriots. Bring him in, baby. I mean, shit. This guy is going off. 28-3 Eagles. Saquon Barkley show. That's all you really got to say. I mean, Jalen Hurts had 14 attempts, 10 completions, 114 and a touchdown, and A.J. Brown had 89 yards and a touchdown of that 114. So A.J. Brown was unreal. Once again, he's so good at football. I will say the Eagles' defensive line was extremely impressive. They had 5 sacks in the game. They had 8 sacks in the game. The Giants had 5 sacks. And this was 2 of the best D-lines in football going at it right now. But the bigger story, I don't think it was necessarily all the Eagles' D-line, although I think they're getting better and better with every week, as we've seen throughout the season. I think Vic Fangio has really figured out which players play well in his system, and I think he's doing a freaking phenomenal job with coaching these young guys up. Nolan Smith played fantastic from what I saw. Nakobe Dean was flying around. Jalen Carter, unreal player. I thought the secondary looks tight, looks good. Daniel Jones had 99 yards. They put Drew Lock in the game. It was so bad. Malik Neighbors was not effective. The Eagles were 1 for 13 on offense on third down. Jalen Hurts was putrid. He was awful. He was running around in circles. He couldn't. I know his stats don't look bad, but man, this guy runs around and takes sacks and throws the ball away. And I've never seen a quarterback that runs for 5 seconds back to the line of scrimmage so many times in my life. Like, did those even count as sacks? Like, the guy is bad, man. And yet, Saquon, 17 carries, 176 yards, 10.4 yards per carry, and a touchdown. A true revenge game. He got booed in New York, and he said, F you. He went in there, and he was a man on a freaking mission from the go. I mean, right from the green light, he was going off, bro. Like, Saquon was ripping big gains, running people over, getting in defenders' faces, chirping them. Like, this was an ultimate... Like, I love Saquon because he's a gamer, man. Saquon is a clutch running back. Like, I'd love to have this guy on my team in a playoff game. He's just a beast, man. And he like, every time it's a big game, he just goes after you. And this was just one of those games where Saquon was one of the best players in the NFL. Like, he willed the Eagles offense, guys. They couldn't throw the ball. They got sacked 5 times. Third down, 1 for 13. I mean, that speaks volumes. Like, Saquon was the whole offense here and a couple shots to A.J. Brown, and that was it. Like, and the Eagles need to continue to press those buttons. Their defense played phenomenal, too. Daniel Jones and the Giants looked more like Daniel Jones and the Giants this week without Andrew Thomas, who they're very desperately missing. The final game, outside of the Patriots, which we'll finish up with, the Raiders and the Rams, 20-15 for the Rams. They win it. I saw this in bits and pieces. It was on the second screen while watching the Niners and the Chiefs. The Raiders won. The Rams won, and huge for me because that was like kind of my best bet of the week, and just to get them to win through the goal line, right? Lead at halftime, win at the end of the game. That was my biggest bet of the week on Patreon, and they come through. They had less first downs. They were terrible on third down. They were terrible on fourth down. They really couldn't run the ball that effectively, and they won. Why? Their defense was outstanding. I thought the Rams' defense played phenomenal. The Raiders actually like outplayed them on offense, honestly, like outside of the turnovers. Minshew was awful in this game. He was under pressure a ton. I think he threw 2 or 3 picks. He was brutal. And I understand why the Raiders went to Aiden O'Connell, because he just makes less mistakes. I think with Aiden O'Connell for this entire game, the Raiders might have won. I'm not going to lie. Now, Minshew, I thought Madison played well. I thought the Raiders ran the ball not bad. He had 92 yards. Brock Bowers was their whole passing game. Him and Trey Tucker. Bowers had 93 receptions, 93 yards on 10 catches. A lot of them were like play action boots, like to the flat and stuff, where he was in yards after catch, or screen type plays, like a lot of those. But man, Brock Bowers, he's so good right now, and he's a chain mover. He's a yak guy. He's a short catch guy. Really good player. Stafford had a rough game. I thought Stafford played pretty terrible, to be honest. None of his receivers played well. He threw a pick, just a stupid pick too. Like, Stafford, you're playing Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. You don't need to go out there and force the ball. Like 14 for 23, 154 and a pick. Ugly stats, and he's been playing ugly football lately. Kyren Williams, 2 touchdowns as always. Guy just he runs hard. He did not have his best game, 3.6 yards per carry. He ran it 21 times. I thought that Kyren, he struggled to get the short yardage, which I thought was a key factor in this game, where the Rams kept getting stopped on short yardage, whether it be on fourth down or third down. That's the reason they were 2 for 10 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. The receivers of the Rams just aren't good. Nobody really is good on that team at receiver. Their O-line was not terrible, but they struggled in the run game. I thought the Raiders' defense played a lot better against the run than they have in past weeks, which kind of shocked me. I thought their team played hard, played well. They just don't have a lot of talent. And what else? The Rams' defense. I thought they called a lot of nice key blitzes at the right time. It forced mistakes. It forced Minshew to hold the ball, throw it, panic. Cameron Curl had a fumble return for a touchdown. They had another interception that set up another touchdown and a short field for the Rams. And like I said, 3 interceptions and a fumble. So 4 turnovers and only 1 sack, I think, or 2 sacks. But the Rams defense was exceptional, especially on third down. I loved their pressure packages. I loved their simulated looks. I thought the Rams defense played really well. Their front seven really well. They do get ran on a little too easy, but in the pass game, I thought they were dominant. So the Rams defense wins them this game. Unfortunately, they did not cover, though. The final game was the first game of the day, the Patriots and the Jags. 32-16, Jacksonville wins it. I talked about it on my stream. The Patriots led 10-0, and I was all excited. That was the first quarter pretty much. They outpossessed the Jags. They dominated them. I think, New England had 2 possessions. They scored a touchdown right off the bat, first possession of the game. I was so pumped. I don't remember the last time the Patriots scored the first possession of the game. Then they had a field goal, and then Jacksonville was stopped, and they were up 10-0. They had the ball. I mean, man. And really, this game is a story of Patriots defense is ass. Like, I know they only allowed, I guess they did allow 26 points on defense, but like one of them came at the end of the game. But yeah, they deserve to give up that touchdown right at the end of the game, honestly, because Jacksonville had 23 first downs. They were 60% on third down. They rushed for 171 yards. They threw the ball whenever they really wanted to. They had 364 yards total. They had New England had no sacks in the game, no turnovers forced, only 2 punts forced. I mean, Patriots defense right now is ass. They look like the Panthers. Their linebackers can't move. They can't cover. They can't stop the run to save their lives. Their D tackles are getting just dented into the middle of the field. Their corners are playing half decent, but at times they give up big plays. Like Gonzalez got beat for a couple key plays by Brian Thomas, who's an amazing football player as a rookie. He had 5 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown, 17.8 yards per catch. Evan Ingram got some things going early. Gabe Davis still sucks. Tank Bigsby is a dog. I love Tank Bigsby. He's such a good player. 26 carries, 118 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. He should be the lead back for Jacksonville. He's a good football player. Meanwhile, New England couldn't run the ball to save their lives. Hasty, 2 carries for -2 yards. Gibson did next to nothing. Stevenson did next to nothing. Hasty caught the ball well. I think Drake May led the team in rushing again with 18 yards. The story of this game is Gerard Mayo sucks. He needs to be fired. I mean, terrible. His defense sucks. He's blaming everybody after the game. He's not taking the blame where he should take it because his defense is ass. The O-line actually played well. I actually thought, like, a lot of Patriots fans are blaming Alex Van Pelt. I thought Van Pelt was not bad. Did he have some plays he'd like to have back? Yes. Do I think that he's not the best OC in the league? Would I rather have Cliff Kingsbury? Yes. But I mean, I thought they protected Drake well. And I understand Jacksonville is not the best pass rush, but I thought they protected Drake well. Yes, the run game's ass. Okay, so the O-line did kind of like defeat us there. The play action, I love the amount of play action that they utilized. I mean, Demario Douglas was sick. He barely played. So that's your best weapon out of the game. I thought Hunter Henry played really, really well. He was probably the best receiver. 8 catches, 9 targets. I don't understand why they continue to play Jalen Polk. He's the worst receiver I've ever seen in my life. He's fucking terrible. He can't catch. He's slow as molasses. I think I'm faster than him. He doesn't separate. What does he do? Why is he on the field? KJ Osborne is just... he's caught a touchdown for 22 yards. It was a nice play. Drake threw a BB. Drake is so good. Drake is really good. I know that he lost here and some of the yards were in garbage time to a certain degree, but like, he's really good. Imagine if he had an O-line, a running game, a defense, a receiver. Like, he has none of those things. He's their best player, and he's a rookie in his second game. He's their best player. Like, and Demario Douglas was out. You had slow-ass, burnt toast, Kendrick Bourne, freaking terrible Jalen Polk, no Javon Baker because they refused to play him. They've got an O-line that's off the scrap heap, a defense that can't stop the run, the pass, the nothing. I did think Trevor Lawrence played good. I will give him credit, 15 for 20, 193, a touchdown. He played about a perfect game. He didn't really make any mistakes. He didn't panic. He hung in there. He made some big downfield throws with accuracy, touch, and power. They had more weapons than us. Doug Peterson outcoached us again for the cajillionth time. Man, all I have to say, I'm not even that defeated because Drake May is legit. If we get a team around this kid's going to be really good. I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. This guy, I've seen enough. I've seen 2 games. He's got arm strength. He's got composure. He's got mostly really good touch and accuracy. He can make really difficult throws. He can make ad-lib plays. He can escape pressure and run. He's smart. He goes through his reads. He reads the field. He doesn't really feature, like, he doesn't force the ball to one player. He actually works the offense. This kid's really good, man. But the team is so fucking terrible. It's so hard to watch this defense this week. It reminded me of the Eagles Super Bowl against Doug Peterson. We couldn't get a fucking stop. It was pathetic. So that's it, guys. That's my recap for week 7. I hope you guys enjoyed. Patriots lose again. It was a good week. Picks were pretty good. Best bets kind of suck so far. Hopefully, we do better on Sunday and Monday night, and we get back to closer to respectable. But, it happens. You get some bad beats. But at least our picks overall were good, so hopefully you listen to some of those. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Gronk, spike the like button. Subscribe. Peace, guys.